The federal government has warned border controls on dangerous, combustible cladding products are neither practical or possible. A Senate inquiry into the dangerous cladding delivered its report on Wednesday night, calling for an urgent ban on the sale, use and import of polyethylene composite panels in Australia. The inquiry, initiated by the 2014 lacrosse fire in Melbourne, warned lives were being put at risk by flammable cladding, which greatly accelerates the spread of fires, particularly in high-rise buildings. The issue was given new urgency by the Grenfell disaster in London earlier this year, which killed at least 80 people. On Thursday, the Senator Nick Xenophon announced he would introduce an amendment to custom laws to stop the import of unsafe cladding products. Unless the states act with a greater sense of urgency, the only way is to legislate to stop bringing this potentially lethal product into the country, Xenophon said. We cannot under any circumstances bear the tragedy that occurred in London. We must prevent any risk of that happening here, he said. The intent of the bill won immediate support from the Greens, although they will wait to see the final wording before giving their final position. Kim Carr, the shadow industry minister, also expressed support for the inquiry's recommendation for a ban, but said if Assistant Industry Minister Craig Laundy took action and banned this dangerous product, there would be no need for a private member's bills to fix what is fundamentally a government responsibility, ensuring public safety. Craig Laundy quickly dismissed the proposed import ban. A spokesman for Laundy described such a ban as impractical and impossible and said the majority of complaints about dangerous building materials concerned locally manufactured products. The Department of Immigration and Border Protection had also advised that such import restrictions were difficult and impractical. The government also fears the ban would impose costs on industry, slow down clearance times for imports and divert the resources of law enforcement. Calls to ban materials at the border will not work, Laundy said. Firstly, these materials are used for all sorts of applications, for instance, signage. Secondly, some of these materials are made in Australia. And thirdly, there are a lot of other products that are combustible that shouldn't be put on the outside of multi-story buildings, like timber, he said. Stemming the imports of unsafe building products is one part of the solution. The government is also under pressure to act on systemic weaknesses in the building sector, which Carr and others say have been caused by deregulation and privatization, including of building certification. The inquiry heard in July that fraudulent certification of building products was widespread. Mandatory inspections of buildings have reduced, and the certification regime had been weakened. Australia's building standards were also lagging behind new developments in the industry. State and territory governments are engaged in a series of audits to determine the extent of the prevalence of cladding in existing buildings. The use of combustible cladding is banned in high-rise buildings, but allowed in lorries. Regardless of the restrictions, early indicators from state and territory audits suggest it is present in thousands of buildings across the country. In an audit of Adelaide's CBD, dangerous cladding was found in 77 buildings, including the Royal Adelaide Hospital. But Xenophon said the audits were happening too slowly and were not comprehensive enough. It is taking far too long. I am not satisfied it has been as comprehensive as it could have been. We need to know now if these buildings are safe, Xenophon said.